Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a review for the 2021 Arnold Palmer Invitational where Bryson DeChambeau is your winner. And I couldn't think of a more fitting golfer to win this tournament than Bryson. Much like Arnold Palmer, well, I should say at the time when Arnold was on tour, he revolutionized the game in a way. I mean, he was a long ball, just lashing at it, not as technical as Bryson, but still sort of revolutionizing the game at that time, where power became more sought after. Same thing is applying here with Bryson DeChambeau. Plus, you also add Puma creating apparel that, basically honors certain golf tracks. They came out with a line of shirts that incorporate the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And I thought they're awesome. I had to get myself one. And I absolutely love my shirt. So either way, all of it together I thought was fitting for, Bryson to win. Unfortunately, I didn't play a lot of Bryson this week. Many of you know, throughout the strategy videos, I do like to use that optimizer of mine to try to come up with the most optimal lineups. And it really liked Rory, which was above him in salary. And it also really liked Hovland and Im. So it would pair up Hovland and Im a lot. And it would just really skip Bryson. Now, thankfully, I put minimum exposures in there and maximum exposures. I still did get enough of Bryson, but not nearly enough. I think I owned him in 10% of my lineups, and I created like 110. So unfortunately, couldn't capitalize on Bryson's win. I had a lot of Sung Jae and Victor Hovland, which was unfortunate. They plummeted down the leaderboard on Sunday. They were looking really good after Saturday's round. I mean, Hovland kind of messed up a little bit, but I thought I was going to have a pretty decent week. I had like 20% of my lineups go 6-6 through. It just, again, unfortunate for Hovland and Im to do so bad, but I guess it was still decent. Anyways, what I want to cover in this review, we're doing a little recap of the tournament, and then really I want to kind of do this like my preview videos, where I'm going to start with looking at everybody who had good course history coming into this tournament and where they ended up, and then also do that with recent form, with all the buckets. So, I mean, we'll look at last year, last week. We'll look at course history, recent form, look at the salary analysis to see, how on par that was. And of course, I'm always going to be looking at the optimal lineup versus whatever the highest entry fee tournament I played in, the winning score of that one, or the winning lineup of that one. So you can find all of the timestamps in the description below. Also, hover over the progress bar. It's cut up into segments, and hovering over them will tell you which ones they are. Okay. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a recap. I have the results page up. You can see Bryson DeChambeau won. Lee Westwood finished second, which was extremely surprising. I did not anticipate seeing someone like Westwood up there, but I know Westwood has been playing some decent golf. It was one of those weird things that I don't think anyone could see. I mean, he was owned 0.86% in the $5 Drive the Green contest. So I obviously wasn't the only person not playing him. Corey Connors seemed like one of the best values of the week. He finished third. Andrew Putnam, I mean, I know some people talked about him, but I thought he was more of a short game specialist. I personally was targeting more off the tee guys. But yeah, Andrew Putnam's up there, tied for fourth. Within that tie was Richie Wierenski, which is funny. My buddy Dave, he's been watching more golf, but he's fairly new, to the DFS world for golf, and just watching it in general. He asked me about a Richie Wierenski, obviously mixing up the letters, but I was like, I don't know how I feel about him. And he goes, well, he has decent XYZ stats. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I basically wrote him off. I mean, $6,100. It was funny that he mentioned him and he finishes fourth place, which just goes to show you don't need to know a lot about golf in order to, I guess, find that rare player that does well. Yeah, Jordan Spieth is up there, which, hey, I think it's locked in now. Jordan is, I'm not going to say he's back, like, he's back to the Golden Boy 2016 Jordan Spieth, but he's now contending on every track. This was the first time he had the first time he had competed in the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I'm sure he's played this golf course before, but the fact is, first time here, finished fourth. This guy's on a roll. I think whatever's been handicapping him in the past might be behind him. I mean, Jordan Spieth looking good. Then we have Christian Bezuidenhout, Chris Kirk, Jason Kokrak, and a slew of guys that finished 10th place, including Will Zalatoris, Max Homa, who I was not on. I'll admit that right now. Matthew Fitzpatrick, Paul Casey, Charlie Hoffman, Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood, and Keegan Bradley. Rory gets another top 10 finish at this tournament. He, I think, now has the most. Actually, no. We'll actually visit that in the course history page coming up. But he played very good golf the first 2 days, and then kind of didn't really waste anything. I mean, it was a very substandard Saturday round for him, but then Sunday came around. I think he shot a 78. So it was playing tough. The golf course was playing tough on Sunday. They put the pins in very tricky spots. They dried out the greens. They let them get firm and fast. It led to some bloodshed. So not surprising seeing some of these guys falter the way that they did, but still, another disappointing Sunday finish for Rory McIlroy. But it's still a 10th place finish, which I think, if you rostered him, it didn't really hurt you that much, but you really wanted him to do a little bit better than that. So let's go ahead and basically go left to right. We'll go course history. We'll get into recent form. And then during recent form, we'll also look at the GPP winning lineup versus the optimal lineup. So course history, I updated the finishing positions for the 2021 tournament. We're only looking at golfers in this field. Sung Jae still holds the best course history average, but just by a slight sliver over Rory McIlroy. Again, McIlroy gets another 10th place finish. I believe, he's now tied at the top with Henrik Stenson for the most top 10s at this tournament. Obviously, we're going to be talking about him next year when he comes to this tournament, saying, hey, he has so many top 10s, but we're most likely going to forget how bad he played on Sunday, which I don't think it really matters. If I'm thinking about myself talking about Rory McIlroy next year, and I'm trying to rationalize it here, I think it's fine. I think it's okay that he did poorly on Sunday, still got a top 10 finish because still he finished inside the top 10. That's the only thing really that matters. For his price tag, probably wanted him, 5th place or above, but top 10 isn't going to be terrible. And when we look at course history, we still have to mention it. That's really good. But you can see Bezuidenhout, he had an 18th place finish here in 2020, follows it up with a 7th place finish. Really good. Bryson DeChambeau, this looks like a really good track for him as well. 100% cut made percentage. A win now, 3 top 10s. That's really good for Bryson. And Matt Wallace also shows up. I wasn't really on Matt Wallace this week. He had missed the cut at the Puerto Rico Open, but ended up finishing 18th place, which for his price tag wasn't terrible. And then you can see some of the other guys. Unfortunate for Keith Mitchell, finished 43rd, but still made the cut. He was $6,500 on DraftKings. Had not been playing, decent golf as of late, but still finished. Still made the cut and finished 43rd. A lot of people were on Francesco Molinari with his missed cut. Drops him down now to 23 is his average finishing position, which still is going to be good, but everyone who thought he was, back to his playing days before kind of the meltdown at the Masters, I guess we got to pump the brakes on that one. Tyrrell Hatton, I think, was a little bit of a disappointment, as was Luke List. Luke List was decent after the cut was made, or actually no, he just made the cut. He was either +1 or -1. I can't remember, but I guess how I remember what I feel like he should have been playing better on Saturday, Sunday. He had terrible finishes, both rounds. But yeah, Tyrrell Hatton, a guy who almost looked like he was going to throw away this tournament. He was put +6 on Thursday, ended up finishing +5, and then I think shot 6 under on Friday's round to make the cut, and then shot like 6 under again. I think it was something like that on Saturday to move himself up the leaderboard, but then had a really bad Sunday round. I shouldn't say really bad, but just it was poor. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about everyone else. You guys can see on the screen where everyone kind of rated up or ranked up. Let's go ahead and get into the recent form. This is also, we're going to be talking about the optimal lineup versus the $5 GPP winning lineup. But first, with recent form, just look at everyone inside the top 10 in the recent form here. Nobody was extremely, good, but there were some decent recent form averages. Let's go ahead and actually just sort by recent form average. So this is what the last 7 weeks look like for these golfers coming into this. I did not include the Workday Championship, the WGC event. There was no cut at that event, so I wasn't going to... Actually, no. Yeah, I did not include that in the recent form average. Maybe I should have, but I also made sure I didn't do it for the cut made percentage. You know what? I'm going to make that update right now because... Oh, no. It is looking at it. I for whatever reason, wasn't thinking of the ranges. Okay, so we are looking at Workday Championship. I did include it. Now, this is the best recent form coming into this tournament. Sure, we see a lot of green, which is good. That means top 20. We do see a lot of red as well. Not terrible. I mean, I think this would be your top 20 right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys who missed the cut. No real notable guys. I know you probably want me to talk about, well, I suppose Sam Burns is right there as well. You probably want me to talk about Francesco Molinari. I wasn't really high on Francesco this week. He had some good rounds. I think the Genesis finish, being 8th at that hard golf course, that difficult golf course, it made me feel good about his chances, but I'm still skeptical about someone like a Francesco, much like I was still skeptical about a Jordan Spieth. I didn't play a lot of Jordan because I'm not sure. Yes, Francesco had 3 good tournaments where he was top 10, but outside of that, 59th at Pebble, which should have probably suited his game a little bit more. I just wasn't sure. But yeah, no real notables other than, I say, Francesco and probably, Patrick Reed, definitely a notable. I don't know. I almost forgot about that guy. Patrick Reed, Sam Burns, and Francesco Molinari, really the only guys that stand out with good recent form that missed the cut. Really surprising to see Patrick Reed miss the cut, but he couldn't make a putt. And that's one of his strong suits. You know what? I think, let's see, what is the highest? 32 for a recent form average. So of the top 20 guys, 32 is, top 20, I guess. So how many guys in the top 10 finished outside of that number? Eight guys. 8 golfers finished outside that top 20 recent form average. Bryson being one of them, $11,000. It might have been difficult if you're looking at recent form and go, no, there's no way I want to play Bryson. That's going to happen with a missed cut, like at the Genesis. It's just going to look bad, and if you haven't played that much golf leading into it, which is surprising. I don't remember Bryson missing any of these. Like, I thought he played at the Waste Management. Maybe not. Or even the Farmers. Maybe my numbers are wrong. Just going to double check here really quick. Oh, he went to the Saudi International and then the Century Tournament of Champions. So he went from Tournament Champions to the Saudi International, then to the Genesis. So yeah, I have those numbers correct. Looking at recent form, I mean, Lee Westwood, 61st at the WGC Workday Championship. That doesn't really say much, but he obviously did play at, overseas. He is in the Players Championship field, so I'm going to take a look there. So not the greatest finishes. 50th at that Saudi International that Bryson was at. 17th at the Omega Dubai Desert Classic. And then 62nd. So nothing really stands out with Lee Westwood. So that 61 we could just keep there. Corey Connors, again, nothing that I'm seeing that's that big, that much, or that important. I'm not going to go on with everyone else. I do find it interesting looking at this column here, the cut made percentage. So this is looking at the last 7 weeks and looking at what their cut made percentage is. Most of them really good, above 50%. Bryson obviously had 0%. His only tournament was at the Genesis. Got a couple European golfers up here that don't have any, tournaments prior to, minus the Workday Championship, the WGC event. But basically everyone inside the top 10, minus Keegan Bradley and Charlie Hoffman, had above 50% when it came to cut made percentage. So if I were to if we were to look at that and go 100% down, yeah, I suppose. I mean, we still have missed cuts, so we can't really go, by that much. Yeah. What I'm trying to look at is I'm trying to find like a comfort level where, hey, look at all the top 20s, look at all the guys who made the cut during this tournament who have a really good cut made percentage. But it's kind of even. It's pretty even when it comes to anyone over that 50% threshold of missed cuts and made cuts, essentially. I'm really looking for just top 20s. Did it really matter having a good cut made percentage coming into this tournament? It didn't. It doesn't appear to be so. Although we do see some guys here, with 100%. Anyways, moving on. Let's take a look at the optimal lineup versus the $5 GPP winning lineup. I'm going to hide some columns so I can pull in that data a little bit easier. You guys can see it up here at the top. So the $5 GPP winning lineup, no surprise, not to me, that it used all $50,000 of the salary. It scored 529.5 points, and it included Bryson DeChambeau, Lee Westwood, Jordan Spieth, Jason Kokrak, Keegan Bradley, and Emiliano Grillo. He had only one guy outside of the top 10. So that was great. I'm always searching for golfers inside the top 10. And when we review the bucket system coming up here, we're only looking at top 10 numbers. That's where the bucket numbers come from, just top 10 golfers. You want to find as many top 10 golfers in your lineup as possible. And that's where I do all my analysis from. So the GPP winning lineup had 5 golfers inside the top 10. Use all $50,000 of salary that you were given and scored 529. Now the optimal lineup scored 573.5. You would have had to have left $2,000 on the table, which it's difficult to do. And those golfers, everybody inside the top 4, basically. Yep, everyone inside the top 4. So it's Bryson DeChambeau, Lee Westwood, Corey Connors, Andrew Putnam, Richie Wierenski, and Jordan Spieth. Now, like you guys, I'm not going to leave $2,000 on the table. I did try to get cute every once, like back in the day, where it's like, you know what? We're seeing the optimal lineup average around, whatever, X dollar, 49,000, whatever. So we want to leave money on the table. Now, I can give you an alternate lineup that is going to use close to 50,000, if not all 50,000, and still beat the winning GPP lineup. And it's going to include Bryson DeChambeau, Lee Westwood, Corey Connors, and Andrew Putnam. So 111K guy, 3 7K guys. Then we're going to go to Jordan Spieth at 9,300 and 8,100 Jason Kokrak. This equals $50,000 on the button. And what this would score, 559.5 points. So obviously 14 points shy of the optimal lineup, but it's 30 points above the $5 GPP winning lineup. So yes, the optimal lineup, $48,000. I'm always hunting for the optimal lineup, but I will take second best. I find it really difficult to create a lineup with $48,000. Leaving $2,000 on the table. You have to have your favorite plays. As we leave more money on the table, more lineups are available to us. So like the probability of finding the correct lineup at $48,000 is going to be much more difficult than finding the correct lineup using all 50,000. I think that's worth noting, because if you're trying to create a lineup that has $50,000 in it or close to, you're eliminating a lot of riffraff. Honestly, like a lot of riffraff. And what I mean by riffraff, if we go ahead, sort this by salary from top to bottom, and we come down here, you can see from $6,500 down, you're going to see most missed cuts. Sure, we have one fourth place finish, but outside of that, if you're using that as a percentage, it's disgusting. It's really difficult to find this guy right here. And honestly, if say, okay, you want to use a 6K golfer. I talk about this a lot in my videos. I talk about it with, some of the guys that I follow and who follow me. Like, looks like we need a 6K golfer on our lineup. Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. But of all the 6K golfers in this field, that was 69 golfers. Nice. 3 of them. 3 top 20 finishes and 1/4. That one guy could be in your optimal lineup. Now, just looking at recent form, can we get there? Probably not. I mean, what's telling you that we want to play Richie Werenski? 85th place finish for average finishing position, 49th recent form, no top 20s leading into this. How do we know it's Richie Werenski and not Brian Stewart? How do we know if it's Richie Werenski and not Mark Hubbard? Or say Tom Hoagie. He was a favorite of mine. I liked Hoagie this week. Who was another 6K golfer that a lot of people were on? Peter Malnati. I know he was talked about, 2 top 20s, leading into this. Why was he not selected? Or why wasn't he the guy inside? I can always do that if then and or whatever. But I'm starting to take a little bit of a stance now that yes, I do want to own some 6K golfers, but I don't know if I want to create all 100% of my lineups with a 6K golfer. Now, I'm gonna blend the salary part, but I'll put it down in the timestamp. So if you just skip to this, know that we were just talking about the optimal lineup and the GPP winning lineup, but we're gonna go into the historical salaries. One of the best ranges was that 7 to 8K range. 34% of top 10 finishes fell inside. I mean, it's the 7K range. I should just put that up there. That's 7K range. It's everything within 7,000 to 7,900. A very large number of golfers inside the top 10 finished there. Now, the next best one is probably your 8 to 9K or the 8K range. And then it tapers off a lot. Even the 6K range, 15.79, not really the greatest. I've seen numbers double that in other tournaments. So for this one, 15%, 69 golfers in that 6K range. 15, I mean, if you were just to take this number, and it's probably not the best way to do it, but say 15% into that 69, we were looking at what? 11 golfers, essentially? Like, not 11, what? How am I trying to say this? It's like 1 in 11? Is that how I'm looking at it? Probably not. I'm No, that wouldn't make sense anyways, because if I'm looking at it, we only have 6 total guys inside the top 10 over the last 3 years. 6 of the 10K range or the 7K range. And those 6, if you divide them up, that's only 2 per year. So if we even really think about it that way, 2 per year, and say the field for 6K golfers is always around 70, trying to find 2 out of that is insane. You know, sometimes there's egregious players that we know we need to take, but if you go all in on, you know, say 5 of them, the likelihood of you actually hitting on that's not going to be great. You know, even if you selected 5, Richie Werenski, I guarantee you it is not going to be a guy that you want to select. So I am always seeking the optimal lineup, always, and I always will be. I think it's, for me playing this, if I wasn't doing that and I was just trying to find the safest plays, it wouldn't be my style, and I almost would find it pointless. I mean, maybe there's a way to do it for winning, you know, for cash lineups and stuff like that, but that's, I don't know. In a way, I'm trying to hit a lottery ticket. You know, I do want to be level throughout each week, or, you know, play with house money all the time. But I'm also trying to win a GPP. And in order to do that, we do have to look at the makeup of how to win a GPP. And I'm finding out that you don't necessarily need to be exact when it comes to winning a GPP. So yes, I am searching for the optimal lineup, but if it requires us to use only $48,000, it's probably not the best way to go about it. So I do, and I always will, keep track of this information, and I will always keep track of optimal lineups and how they're built. But I am not going to go heavy on trying to match every single conditional possible. So that's kind of my little rant about that. I would much rather try to select a golf or a lineup closer to $50,000 and beat the GPP winning lineup. Obviously, I showed you how you could do it. And it actually would relate to what we talked about in the preview. 3 7K golfers, a 10K and above golfer, and then fill it in with, you know, the other 2 golfers, whatever they end up being. Obviously, this was a 9K and an 8K golfer. I think that's totally fine, totally doable. So anyways, moving on from there, let's go ahead, dive into the 2021 DK page. And actually, I'm going to start from left to right here as well. I'm going to talk about the SweetSpot score. Now, I have a rank over here. The rank is looking at the score comparatively to the rest of the golfers. So Bryson was number 6 in the model. What I'm really looking for when it comes to this, I'm trying to find, you know, the field was 120 golfers deep. I want this number to be basically a reflection. Like, I want most of these to be under half of the field. So obviously, if there's 120 golfers, I want to see most of these guys 60 and below. So if I go ahead and I sort by this rank and look at the SweetSpot score, I'm seeing a lot of top 10s, which I like. A lot of top 20s is what I'm really after. So if I highlight all the top 20s, all the top 20s within the top 20 of the SweetSpot score rank, obviously you can see that over on the left side, I have 9 golfers that finish inside the top 10, top 20. One, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 golfers who missed the cut. Or, I'm sorry, 6 golfers. No, it was 5 golfers who missed the cut. 1 guy withdrew, Justin Rose. No idea why. I know it was injury related, but I mean, we can't really forecast that kind of thing. And I'm not really going to hold it against, you know, the SweetSpot score ranking. There's no WD probability baked into that, but maybe there should be. Obviously, Louis Oosthuizen withdrew this week. That's a golfer we know tends to do that kind of thing. But either way, for the most part, SweetSpot score looked good. That means when we're creating lineups and the lineups are looking at, or the optimizer is looking at this, we're picking a lot of good golfers. Now I can scroll down a little bit and we're seeing less missed cuts, which is amazing. That's awesome. It's telling me that SweetSpot score is looking at the right things. And if we were to do that, I'm actually going to hide this for now. We'll reopen it, but I want to give more screen, you know, being able to see. But we're looking at official world golf ranking, Bermuda stats, course history, recent form, DraftKings points, their scoring average. And those are season-long stats. All of these are season-long stats, actually. And then bogey avoidance and birdie or better. I was looking at those stats as well. So yeah, SweetSpot Score looked great. Just to do a quick kind of analysis of the bucket scores altogether before we actually really dive into the buckets. I don't even know if we are, but just to do a quick analysis here. My number one thing, always, I'm looking at, actually we'll look at strokes gained last. We'll start with last year bucket. So everyone in this column, I'm looking for, let me sort by position. I'm looking for very minimal 5s or 6s. And as you can see, no one inside the top 10 was a 5 or a 6. So let me actually go ahead and remove everyone except for top 10 finishes. So as we're looking at this, we have Keegan Bradley, the only last year 5. That's great. When we look at last week buckets, I'm also looking for minimal 5s and 6s. Now we have Lee Westwood, which the only event he had played prior to this on the PGA Tour was the WGC event. So he finished in 60th place. That netted him a really bad last week score. So yeah, I personally, I don't think I would have ever selected Lee Westwood because that bucket is not a good bucket. But looking at the other guys, we have a last week 5 in Tommy Fleetwood, and that's it. So we only have 2 golfers inside the top 10, which for this week was actually quite a bit of golfers. 17, in fact. 17 overall golfers inside the top 10. Only 2 had a last week bucket score of 5 or greater. So that's good. Now, the other things I look at, recent form, course history. Again, I'm looking for minimal 6s and 5s, but this week, I mean, we had, I wouldn't say quite a bit, but 4 out of 17 guys, and actually 4 of those guys inside the top 4. Lee Westwood, Corey Connors, Andrew Putnam, Richie Wierenski. And if we were looking at the buckets, what constitutes a last or a course history 6 bucket? Actually, guys who have no. Guys who have a missed cut or greater. I mean, prior to this week, this event, if you look at everybody in this, I mean, the count for each year, we haven't had more than 1, and it's only shown up 3 times over the last 6 years. So it's like, that's insane that we saw that many course history 6 golfers inside the top. I mean, I can't even say inside the top 10, inside the top 5. We had 4 of them. And actually, we had 3 of those guys. I misspoke because Lee Westwood was a last week 5 or a course history 5. So looking at course history 5s, that's that 60 to 80, which is still not as good. Sure, we see a little bit more, but still not good. So going back to it, kind of disappointing, but still we could have probably created, I don't know that with salaries, if I were to create a lineup with golfers who do not have that course history bucket. Let's see, what do I need? I need 7,000. So Keegan Bradley. So yeah, inside the top 10, I can still make a lineup with not having all 6 course history guys. I don't think that's going to win a GPP. I can double check. Looking at all of the... $504. That's not winning that GPP, that $5 GPP. So yeah, course history, we needed to jump into a 5 or a 6 at least once or twice. I do always have my minimum set to 1 when it comes to 5s and 6s. So I could have gotten on Westwood or Connors. And even with the last week bucket being a 6, I still could have gotten on Lee Westwood. With that score, I don't know. Probably not. But either way, still looking good. You know, course history bucket, not terrible. Now, if we look at recent form bucket, as you can see, nobody a 5 or a 6. Now, we can actually look to see how many golfers were a 5 or a 6 out of this bucket since we don't see any. Not a lot. not a lot. A total of 18 between the two buckets. Just out of the 6, 9. So it's a total, it's an equal 9 of 9 in that bucket. So not really huge. If we're looking at 5s and 6s for course history, we see a lot more of those. 41. Not half of the field, but a pretty good chunk of it. So it makes sense. We were going to see some guys, you know, just with that large of a number, the probability just on volume alone, it's going to lend itself to finding, you know, 1 or 2 of them inside the top 20. So I'm going to chalk it to that. Maybe you guys don't agree with me. Chime off in the comment section if you don't. But to me, it's kind of a bit of a fluke. Again, I'm not going to play multiple. So I could play one of these guys, but I'm not going to play Werenski and Putnam. It's just not going to happen. And that's fine. I don't need to, because I can still come up with a decent lineup selecting just these guys. Instead of Werenski and Putnam, I mean, I could go Kirk and Keegan, I believe, right? Yeah, it's 48.8, so I can actually go a little bit more expensive. Bezuidenhout, that's 49.3. Kokrak, 49.9. Yeah, so I could do this. That's doable. I could also... No, I couldn't. Yeah, doing something like this, though, how many points would I have scored and would I have won a GPP? 553. I sure would have. So yeah, I can still be as restrictive as I was when it came to those buckets. Which I'm going to throw this in here, and I'm only doing it because I want to reward you guys. I'm giving this away. It's still a work in progress. So if you want this for the Players Championship, what you need to do is either retweet this on Twitter. First of all, like my Twitter post, retweet it. And I will contact you through Twitter that way, or on YouTube. Oh, by the way, this actually isn't going to just be for the players. I'm going to give this for the players, but it's going to be an overall thing for the Masters. So you will get this for the players as well as the Masters. And again, on Twitter, I told you what you need to do. On YouTube, it's going to be a little trickier. I'm going to need you to like this video, comment in the comment section, and then email me. You're going to have to email me. Email can be found in the description below. And I don't think I have it actually showing for you guys. But yes, you're going to have to email me, because I can't tell what your email address is from your YouTube unless you actually put it in your description of your YouTube, like you can see in mine. So I can't contact you. But obviously, you know, by looking at the strategy video, I use these constraints here. So as you can see, my maximums for all the 5s and 6s are set to 2s or 1s, even 3s. So hey, course history, I had for 3. For course history 5, I had for a 2. So maybe I switch these. Nah, I'm probably going to keep them as is. There's no way, I don't think I'm going to ever change that. But that's why I mentioned that when it comes to these recent form buckets, or even course history buckets, because I can use that optimizer, and you guys could too, by trimming off that fat, not having, you know, and trying to get to this type of lineup. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is strokes gained buckets, and I actually present this in a different way. If you've been with me on my strategy videos, you know exactly what it looks like. But first of all, when we look at our top 10 golfers, it comes down all the way down to Will Zalatoris. So if we're looking at everyone here, how many 5s and 6s do we see? We see 1 5. Otherwise, we see many more 1s and 2s. This is actually really important. It actually is, I shouldn't say important, but it was very revealing looking at showdown slates. So my round 4 showdown, I only made $1.40. I only put in $1 or $1.50. I only put in $1, but still I won money. And part of it was looking at the strokes gained buckets, because inside the top 10, you know, from after round 3, you had Doug Gim. Trying to remember everyone that I saw, but I saw a bunch of 5s and 6s. So I think, who were they? And did they do that terrible? I wish I could have, I should have marked them, But I still can't. Did we already pass Doug Yim? There's Doug Yim. Oh, I was looking at strokes gained bucket 4s. That's what it was. So yeah, we still see a bunch of strokes gained bucket 4s, and Lee Westwood was definitely one of those guys as well. But we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4 strokes gained bucket 4 golfers. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1 strokes gained bucket 5 golfer. If we go to the strokes gained buckets, again, I show this in a different way. Basically, I always say, always look left to right, because we see more golfers inside the top 10, top 20 from left to right. Not this week. We do see a lot inside this top, this would be bucket 1. This is strokes gained bucket 1. I know it doesn't say anything on there. It's meant to give you a description of what it is. But each one of these buckets, it's 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth as we go from left to right. But as you can see, strokes gained bucket 1 dominated. And this was all stats positive. Bucket 2 was basically all stats are positive, not really, but it's positive off the tee, positive putting. So obviously we would have negative off or negative approach or negative around the green. Bucket 3 were positive off the tee, negative putting. Bucket 4, negative off the tee, positive putting. Bucket 5, negative off the tee, negative putting. And then bucket 6 is just no strokes gained stats whatsoever. This usually never has anyone inside the top 10 or top 20. Jazz Jane Watananon was actually inside the top 10 after round 3. He made a hole-in-one on Saturday, helped propel him into the top 10. Look where he finished, 57th place. So when we're looking at week long, probably a good reason to fade these guys. I wasn't worried about any of them. None of them really showed up. None of them really finished that well. So a good time to just fade all of that. Your only golfer inside the top 10 for the strokes gained bucket 5s, Tommy Fleetwood, finished 10th place. He was 7th in the SweetSpot model. It's Tommy Fleetwood. To see him there was kind of surprising, but still, he hadn't been playing the greatest of golf here on the PGA Tour. But yeah, he's the only strokes gained bucket 5. If you wanted a reason to fade any of these guys, here it is. Perfect reason to fade strokes gained bucket 5s. So you could get rid of 20 golfers there and 9. So 29 golfers, which this would include Justin Rose, Mark Leishman, Tommy Fleetwood. I mean, he finished 10th. That's still good. Don't get me wrong. Brennan Grace, Kevin Na. Same goes with any of the guys. Yeah, no one was really priced up. But if you were interested in Victor Perez or Robert McIntyre, good reason to fade them. Everyone kind of lied within the strokes gained 1 to strokes gained 4 buckets. 4 had a surprising amount of golfers inside the top 10. And not the ones that I would have picked. I probably wouldn't have handpicked any of these guys. Just looking at the SweetSpot score, there were a lot of golfers that I would have put ahead of these guys. Just looking at my lowest SweetSpot score golfers, I wasn't on Adam Hadwin this week, so I'm not going to mark him. But Kisner, Lonto, Christian, Bezuidenhout, Jordan Spieth, they all made the cut. But, Lee Westwood, Andrew Putnam, Richie Wierenski, I wouldn't have been on any of those golfers. So really interesting to see that every once in a while something like this is going to happen. It's not to say we absolutely needed any of these guys, but still, it is surprising to me. I usually only say pick 0 to 2 golfers for negative off the tee positive putting. The only way I could actually think why this ended up the way it did is because Sunday's round was difficult. Everyone was going to have issues off the tee, approach, all that kind of stuff. But when it came down to making key putts, obviously if you have positive putting, it's going to work out for you. That's the only way I could think of it. That, and also some of these guys might have negative off the tee who aren't typically negative off the tee guys. And just for the moment are in the negative. That's a good way to think of it that way. I mean, we haven't seen a lot from Matt Wallace. So the fact that his stats are in the negative might be incorrect. Same goes with Christian Bezuidenhout. These four and Lee Westwood. But these three golfers, we've seen enough on tour to know that they've been struggling off the tee this whole season. So either way, they still finished 4th place. It's crazy. Strokes gained bucket 3, not a good showing. Some notable golfers in this range. I'm trying to find anyone over 8K, and it would just be Hideki. And actually would be a really good bucket to avoid. I did play a lot of Brendan Steele. I shouldn't say a lot, but enough. I did play some Martin Laird, which he was doing well after round 1 or 2. Can't remember. I also like Luke List. Basically anyone that has a good ranking, like even Ricky Fowler, made the cut but finished dead last when it came to golfers who made the cut. 20, 39, let's see, 33, 29. Okay, so some of my higher or better ranked golfers are up here at the top. So it actually turned out pretty decent for golfers in that bucket. But yeah, bucket 1 and 2 for strokes gained. A lot of people were burned by Billy Horschel, Sam Burns. I know some people liked Cameron Davis and Matt Jones. I wasn't on a lot of these guys. I actually limited my exposure to Sam Burns to 20%. I just didn't want to play too much of him because he is one of those guys that could, tank all of your lineups basically. So yeah, I didn't want to go there. Harris English, Sung J M, Tyrrell Hatton, Charlie Hoffman, Jason Kokrak. All guys that I actually played. Guys I liked. I really liked Sung J M and Victor Hovland. Victor Hovland had one of the worst last 27 holes that I could think of on PGA Tour. For someone his caliber. He was inside the top 10 after Friday's round. So he was going into the weekend inside the top 10, was looking like he was playing on all cylinders and just fell apart. So unfortunate. A lot of my lineup started with Victor Hovland and Sung J M. I was looking good after Saturday's round. And then Sunday happened and, both of them kind of went down. Sung J, I don't know. He did make an eagle, which was nice on his back 9, or was his front 9, which helped him stay around even par. But enough bogeys happened. They happened to everybody, but unfortunate. Sung J finished 21st. Just, it is what it is. But yeah, everything else kind of turned out the right way. I mean, Rory, number 1 in my sweet spot rank. He was a strokes gained bucket 1, finished top 10. Who was number 2? Sung J was number 2, almost a top 20. My third guy was Victor Hovland, was looking good until he wasn't. Number 4, Tyrrell Hatton, top 20. Like, SweetSpot Score did all right. I think altogether was good. The last piece I want to take a look at, let me double check. Is this the last thing I want to talk about? Oh, no. Let's go back to the, so that was kind of the buckets. I should have done this during the course history, but what I'm going to do is hide all of this. I guess we could take a look really quickly to see, the rank of average buckets, going from left to right, kind of that string, which ones like show up the best. It doesn't really show. Like, it doesn't really give us any good evidence that works one way or the other. We have some missed cuts in there. We have some top 20s. We have 4 missed cuts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 top 10s. So hey, I guess going by that rank wasn't terrible. Francesco was one of the guys that disappointed. Fratelli, we probably wouldn't have played. Reed disappointed. And Kyle Stanley, we wouldn't have played. So if we went by this, damn, we could have came up with a lineup. Shoot. Okay, let me go ahead and hide this. Go from position. Actually, here's one thing I noted during the course breakdown. If we look at the course breakdown, we saw many more draws than we did fades. And you can see all the draws. They're all highlighted in red. Looking at the golfer information tab here, look at how many guys draw the golf ball. And again, this is a database I created. I look at golf shots from everybody. I try to capture them, throw them into a spreadsheet, throw them into a database Look at how many guys draw the golf ball versus fade the golf ball inside the top 10. I have a count of 12. And I have a both for Will Zalatoris. He showed me he can flight shots. I mean, this guy is... Here's a quick thing on Will Zalatoris. The guy's freaking good. Like, most of us already knew that, but they had enough camera footage on him this week that I was amazed. The guy, he shapes shots both directions, and he can hit slight fades, banana hooks, or banana slices, I should say. He can hit pretty decent, I'm trying to think of my draw vocabulary here, but just really good draws. A slinger, that's a good one. He can sling hooks. Like, the guy can hit all the shots, and he's pretty much in control. A golfer like that, if he has his game, I think all it really does, it comes down to his putting, right? I'm pretty sure Will Zalatoris' really only weakness is his putter. Seeing him flight shots both directions, whatever, was awesome this week. And I'm going to keep that in mind going forward. I did only have him as a draw golfer, but listening to the announcers talk about, the broadcast talk about how he normally likes to hit a fade, but then obviously he can hit the nice draws and stuff, and it's in control. So when I put both, that means I've seen a golfer flight shots both directions when he needs to. Now, I know there's some people out there that go, yeah, most professional golfers know how to shape shots both directions. Yeah, no shit. I can shape shots both directions. I'm pretty in control. It's not difficult to shape shots both directions. It's how well you can control it. And when you decide to use it, shows a lot about who you are as well. So if you're hitting fades when you should clearly hit a draw, it means you don't really hit a draw. You know, you can hit a draw, but you're not good at it. You're more comfortable hitting a fade, or you're more comfortable hitting a draw. So I'm looking at those scenarios. If there's a dogleg left and someone hits a fade, you know, a right-handed golfer hits a fade, I'm going to say that's a fade. He's a fade golfer. He does not hit a draw, because you would want to hit a draw in that scenario unless you are playing for position, which I'm also taking all of that into account. When you need to be on the right side of the fairway because the pin is tucked to the left and you hit a fade in that scenario, that makes sense. But if you can't hit a draw into that pin, which I'm also looking at, then I'm not going to say you can hit it both directions. I'm going to say you can only hit a fade. So just know I'm looking really closely at this stuff. And I'm, thankful for COVID in a way, because we don't have an influx of new golfers. So I get to, really focus on the golfers I don't have yet updated and continue to update them. Either way, look at how many draws, how many boths, how many draws. Fitzpatrick primarily hits a fade. Hoffman, I think he can hit it both directions. I've seen him hit draws before. I just don't know how well he does it. But I have him as a fade. But Zeidenhout, I haven't seen enough of his golf yet. I probably should have paid more attention to the broadcast this weekend. But I have him as a fade. Putnam I have as a fade. And Lee Westwood has a fade. But I know he can hit a draw. I just don't know what his preferred shot shape is completely. I know he primarily hits a fade. And he was hitting fade after fade after fade on Sunday. It would show to me he's more comfortable hitting a fade. So draw golfers. This is the first time, obviously, I've looked at it for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I could probably go back in time and look at every other golfer that's up at the top of the leaderboard and import this information to see how many more draw golfers finish inside the top 10. But pretty impressive, right? I think that's pretty cool. Now, let's go ahead and get into the grass stats. So we obviously have this sorted from, the position, top to bottom. Everything you see that's green is the best. The field average is 52.58. How many guys are under 52.58? Of everyone inside the top 10, we have 13 golfers. 13 out of 17 golfers are under field average when it comes to overall Bermuda. If we go ahead and sort this from top to bottom and look at everyone inside the top 10, not very good, like compared to like how many missed cuts we have. So 5 missed cuts or 6 missed cuts and withdraws versus 7. So it's even split. So it's still good. The other thing I like to look at is this number right here has to be greater than 5. So obviously Bezuidenhout is not, but he only has 5 events. I don't know what that the sweet spot number here is for, you know, the minimum amount of events that I need to not look at this, but I'm looking at 5% or greater. Now, if we were to actually flip it and look at everyone who's at 0%, you know, we had Zalatoris and Bezuidenhout. Now, I imagine Zalatoris is going to have good numbers on Bermuda eventually. So this is the first top 10 finish, which is great. This will enhance his number. But not having Zalatoris on this at this event didn't hurt us. Neither did, you know, Christian Bezuidenhout. They were not in the optimal lineup. They weren't even in the winning GPP lineup. So not having those two guys, not terrible. Looking at everyone else that's at 0%, like look, not good enough. Homa, 10th place finish. Again, he's not in the optimal lineup or a winning GPP lineup. He's under 5%. And of all the guys who are under 5%, we have a total of 21 golfers. So really, that would narrow your player pool down a little bit if you were to start here and then go forward. Of course, you would have missed out on 3 top 10 golfers, which when we have 17 of them, it's not that big of a deal. And if we're being quite honest, we were already going to ditch Werenski. Werenski's 5.41. Who else were we going to ditch? Probably Christian Bezuidenhout, because I think he was no, probably not. I guess he was strokes gained 4, course history 1, recent form 2. Yeah, no, we wouldn't have ditched him. So we wouldn't have ditched anybody. Never mind. But either way, good to see that still holds up. I mean, there weren't a lot that we could get rid of, but still it works. And then if we sorted, 2021 Bermuda stats, we can see that it's pretty even with missed cuts and top 20s. I never really look at this stat. It is interesting because this is like the most recent Bermuda stats. And obviously I always look at the most recent stats of basically any of the stats versus season long and try to tell if there was, I'm just trying to find a trend analysis basically to figure out who is good and who is not, essentially. Looking at everyone else, I have last week's scoring stats. It would take a lot longer for these review videos if I went through all this information. I don't particularly know how valuable it is. If we're looking at scoring history or scoring average from last week, I guess, wow, we do see a lot of top 20s. But of course, these are all your top golfers as well. 2 missed cuts way up the top, like Billy Horschel and Patrick Reed. But hey, scoring average, not terrible. DraftKings points, still seeing a lot of guys. I guess if we actually selected from here, it wouldn't have been terrible. I like looking at the rounds under 70 from the week before. Still pretty good. I'm pretty sure, okay, we do have some more missed cuts. I want to double check. They didn't play well at the WGC. Maybe Christian Bezuidenhout did, but Christian Bezuidenhout did well here at the API, but at the WGC did not. You can tell the scoring average, rounds under 70, not great. Even the finishing position, not great. So he's really the only guy. Yeah. It's not really a good stat to go off of, but even if we looked at recent form stats, this would be your last 7 weeks, DK points, scoring average. Pause the video if you want to see these stats a little bit closer. Rounds under 70, the percentage there, decent. I mean, a lot of these stats are looking the same, right, guys? Like, if we sort from best to worse, we're going to see almost an even mix of missed cuts and top 20s. It's really trying to figure out who are the best plays. Yeah, even mix. Missed cuts, top 20s. How about DraftKings points? Even mix once again. Scoring average. Oh. Overall scoring average, like your best golfers, not showing up the greatest. This is probably the worst stat to look at. Differential, I've talked about this in the past. It's really just comparing scoring average versus the lowest round that a golfer's ever had on tour for that season, for this season. Werenski, I guess. I mean, if you're looking for your volatile golfer, he's up there. Same with Jordan Spieth. Dang. I wasn't going to play Damon this week. I did like Brendan Steele, so I could have had 3 golfers. If I were to look at the top 5, pretty decent. It's not terrible. Rounds under 70. This stat isn't the greatest to look at because it's kind of guesstimating how many rounds someone's played in an event because it only goes by events. So the number could be worse or better than what it should be. Looking at everyone off the tee, not terrible. I mean, a lot of people are talking about this was going to be a ball striking course. You need to have the greatest ball strikers here. If we're looking at approach and off the tee, I mean, approach, we had 4 guys inside the top 20. None of them inside the top 5. Did not have the winner there. Off the tee, yes. And really, off the tee is the best, one of the best stats to look at. Tee to green obviously would be, but off the tee and putting is where it's at. You should be looking at those stats. And really, it's like I do with the strokes gained buckets. We're looking at positive and negative, all the different combinations. You know, the 6 combinations basically, and going from there. We can look at to see who's been playing better recently than their season long. Wow, more top 20s than I would have anticipated. Scoring average, we want to look at the other way around. Yeah, scoring average is, these are guys, I mean, these guys don't have stats. I got to look at that next time. But they obviously didn't have recent form stats. This should just be zeroed out. But the guys right here, yeah, that's one way to look at recent form versus baseline stats. That's pretty good. That is very good. Looking at that. Differential, I don't think is really that important. Okay, we want to look at flipped upside down. These are guys who, again, they don't have stats, so we shouldn't be looking at these guys. Don't look at those. This one doesn't work anyways. Not one to really look at. How about off the tee? Anyone playing better off the tee recently than season long that's inside the top 10? Not really. Sure, Putnam. Hey, that might be a good reason to be on Putnam or Werenski. Actually, not a bad way to look at it. How about approach? Casey, Spieth, Fleetwood, Homa, Hovland was up there. Actually, not a bad way, but that has mixed results. Around the green, I don't think is that important. It's not like you're going to get super hot. Basically, having good around the green stats means you have bad approach stats. And putting, having good putting stats, not something really that big of a deal. And as you can see, even having worse putting stats than your baseline isn't that much beneficial either. The last piece of information I want to go over, the extra stats that I have here. I used to keep track of this stuff. I just want to see if it plays a huge factor by sorting through everything. You can see driving distance didn't really do it. Driving accuracy didn't really do it. Good drive percentage I thought might play a big factor into this week's tournament. Not so much. Bogey avoidance, your best bogey avoidance golfers. This had no effect. 3 guys inside the top 10. More missed cuts and withdraws. Not a good stat really to go by. Birdie or better, sure. It's a mix between missed cuts and top 20s. And I don't really think total birdies matter because the more golfer, like the golfers that play more golf are going to have more birdies just naturally. So looking at something like this, not the greatest. You obviously want to kind of compare these with birdie or better. So as you can see, like Bryson DeChambeau, 28.03% birdie or better, only 120 or 102 birdies. That's because he hasn't played that many events. Unlike a Sung J M down here, a really good birdie or better percentage, a lot of birdies. That's something you want to look at. The eagle thing to me is interesting because obviously if someone's golfed a lot of golf, you would assume that their eagle percentage might be a little bit better, or the amount of eagles that they get. Obviously, these are really good scores on DraftKings. 8 points for an eagle, 3 points for a birdie. We want more eagles. And I think the guys who actually did finish, no, that didn't really play a big factor. So I'm not going to go by that. Last piece that I want to discuss, I know we already kind of talked about it, is really just the optimizer. I already mentioned a giveaway earlier in the video. If you're one that likes to skip around, I'm sorry, but your reward for finding this, you're going to find in the video. You're going to have to search for it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But what I ended up doing was I just trying to make this big enough for all you guys to see without maximizing the screen. I locked all of the guys who were in the optimal lineup. That included Bryson DeChambeau, Jordan Spieth, Corey Connors, Lee Westwood, Andrew Putnam, Richie Wrensky. And the only reason I did that and ran the optimizer is to see where everyone fell in their buckets. So we had one last year one last year, or two last year twos, three last year fours. You can see what I set my maximum at. I no longer put minimums because I found that's not really the route to go. Actually, I did for strokes gained, and we'll get there. But for last year, no. For last week, you can see how many fell under those buckets and what my maximums were there. So really last year and last week, I did well when it came to setting my min and my maxes. Coming down to course history, there were 3 course history 6 golfers. I have my max at 1. I'm okay with that because I'm going to show you a different lineup that we could have gotten to. I'm cool with this. We only had 1 course history 5, 1 course history 4, 1 course history 1. Recent form, that was perfect. We have 3 that were recent form 1s, 2 that were recent form 2s, and 1 that was a recent form 3. You can see what my maximums are here. I don't set anything over, I guess, 4 when it comes to this bucket, but still, everything looked good there. Strokes gained bucket is really the only one that kind of messed up. 4 strokes gained 4 golfers. There's no way I might move this to 3, but I'm probably keeping it at 2. Actually, I'll keep it to 3. 3's fine, but these 2 are staying the same. 1's for each of those. And then when it came to salary, told you we probably needed 3 7K golfers during the preview video, and you can see how the rest of them shook out. So that actually turned out really well as well. I wasn't going to have more than 1 6K golfer. I should have changed that for this week. I wanted to see what it would have looked like if I would have had 2. But either way, that was great. Now, the lineup that I'm talking about that we could have gotten to, we obviously already discussed it. So it would have been, these 4, a Coke rack. Let's double check this. How much salary do I have left? So I need to find someone who is 7,100, but it's not going to be Andrew Putnam. We're going to go with Chris Kirk. And now that I do all of that, I need to look here. Actually, I don't. So let me actually put all those guys in the optimizer and then pull it back. Let's see. So we want Bryson, Jordan, Corey Connors. Those all stay the same, and Lee Westwood. Perfect. But we need to switch out Andrew Putnam and Richie Wrensky and put in Kirk, who I know a lot of people are on. Just by the way, this does win, right? 553, yeah. So Kirk and it'd be Kokrak. Let me run the optimizer so then the buckets get updated and then I can show you what that would look like. I haven't personally looked at it, so I don't know what I'm going to see. Strokes gained buckets look way better. So two last year 4s, which is fine. We have 3 last week 1s, 1 last week 2, a last week 4, and a last week 6, which is okay. Our maximum's at 1. 1's all the way down the board for course history. That's amazing. I like that. Recent form still stays up there. That's great. And then I think we had this at 2 before. So this all right in line with all of that as well. And this looks good. No 6K golfers, 3 7K still, an 8, a 9, and a 10K plus. So, hey, Optimizer could have found it. I just don't know. It obviously goes off my metric. So if the SweetSpot Score numbers aren't good enough, we're not getting there. I've been toying around with it. I'm not sure how I really want, because basically what I'm thinking about doing is when I run these lineups, I've thought about just locking in 2 guys at a time. So let's say I want one lineup with Rory and Bryson. I would do that, then get rid of it, come down to the next one, say yes to that, build a lineup that way, and so on and so forth. So I would do that, all the way down to a certain number, say maybe to Fleetwood. But what that would end up doing would be I'd have 12 Rory McIlroy lineups. Maybe that's not a bad way to do it. Thinking about my maximum ownership, you can see I haven't changed this. This is what I had for maximum ownership, and this is what I had for minimum. Actually, this did change. This was different. But maybe I go that route. I don't know how many lineups you can actually create. So if you did something like this, that'd be 12 plus 11 plus, well, it would be 10. So basically, let's see here. It's going to be that'd be around 120 lineups. It'd be close. Like if you consistently just kept going, down the list like that, and creating lineups, maybe it would be less. It'd probably be 100, right? I don't know exactly how that math shakes out, but maybe an interesting way to try it for the players. Because I do believe, actually, what I wanted to say is I believe we could probably get to the optimal lineup that way, but maybe not. Anyways, I just saw the time. We're an hour and 12 minutes into this. I think that's enough time to go over the review. I did want to go over all the stats, though. So that was one of the big things I like to do in reviews. I want to review the process, show it to you guys, instead of, I don't know about you, but for me, I hate watching DFS shows talk about something with conviction. Like, you have to do it this way, or you'd be a fool if you did it this way, and then not come back to it. And then the next year we hear the same garbage, and then not be shown, if it worked or if it didn't. Also, these reviews for me it's to look back. Like I've started watching. I will admit I wasn't watching my review videos from last year, primarily because the production wasn't the greatest. I don't remember when I got this mic, but obviously I have a mic. We have a pop filter. I now have a boom arm, so that's all great. So obviously the production's going up. But yeah, listening to poor audio, I know I tried. I wanted to get my feet wet when I was doing it before, and that's why it sounded and looked the way it did. Obviously, we keep evolving, and I really want these reviews to be something to first look at before the preview of the next year's tournament. Just to keep ourselves in check, not to go too crazy when it comes to, our convictions of every year. But it was interesting to see. I think this review for me, I personally liked the most because I was able to show you an alternate lineup that would have won a GPP, showed you what the GPP lineup was and what the optimal lineup was. We discussed all the stats. So if someone were to tell you X, Y, or Z stat matters, you guys could personally yourselves just go, well, we just watched the review of SweetSpotDFS and it was very 50-50. Like, those stats don't necessarily matter all that much. Like, it's not that big of a deal. We need to find the right mixture of stats. So don't go all in on one stat or the other. Have a good mix. And that's really what I want these reviews to be about. So I have went on long enough. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the preview for the Players Championship. All right, bye.